The idea of escape routes, and that's what we're going to be talking about next, which is understanding when you learn a lick or you learn a pattern or you learn a scale shape or whatever it is, learning how to connect them together across the fretboard. Because oftentimes, when I see people play or when people ask me about stuff, they'll be able to do something in a particular spot on the guitar or execute an idea, a lick or something they've been working on, but they can't really learn to connect them together smoothly, functionally. And that's what we want to talk about. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be focusing, you'll find this in your PDF, creativity on the fretboard. Once you've developed being able to see elements on the guitar, positions of a scale, whatever it might be, okay? And you start developing technique. Like every day when you grab the guitar, the first thing you do for 20 or 30 minutes is you just roll through some exercises to get your fingers stronger and more articulate, and they understand each other a little bit better, all those kind of things, right? Then once we get to that third part, which was the understanding the guitar theory thing, okay, that's where we kind of bleed into this second section here, which is creativity on the fretboard. And this is where we start seeing the execution idea of escape routes, is learning how to connect ideas, licks, patterns, sequences, whatever they might be, through movement across the guitar, and then ultimately learning how to phrase as well, okay? So creativity on the fretboard. So the first thing that I tell people is once you've started learning how to kind of play a position, a scale position, for instance. The next thing you want to do with that is you want to start learning how to do a technique that I refer to as meandering. And basically what meandering is taking a metronome or a drum machine or whatever it is you have, and it could just be a jam track or something too, but make sure that it's a tempo that's comfortable for you. And what meandering does is, I don't know what I just said there, but meandering does is it starts enabling you to understand where your limitations are in your ability to see the fretboard and move across the fretboard. So we're not creative yet. We're just learning how to make these two things kind of merge together. So let's say we took a metronome and we said we're going to be going dun 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 dun. And you could choose any speed, any tempo, okay? But let's say I took this first position of G major. And one of the things that I'm doing is I'm practicing it every day with the metronome going up and going down, right? Which is a very common thing for guitar players to practice. That's great, and we want to do that, no doubt about it. But meandering isn't that. What meandering is you're going to start injecting confusion into your brain, which means our tempo needs to be a little bit slower. So we've got time to think and process and then execute. So what happens is once we set our tempo, we start moving around inside the scale, but we're not allowed to move just up and down, and we're not allowed to stop. Okay? So what you're going to do is set your metronome and you're going to start going dun 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 dun, and you're just going to move around. Now, it's not making any sense musically right now, but what's happening is you're disengaging from just playing it up and down all the time. And you're trying to see whether or not your brain and your fingers will allow you to jump over a string or go a different direction or take a different route across this position that we're playing in. And eventually you start doing that with all the positions. You can do each position alone, or you can start bulking them together and start practicing things like this. So as the music is playing, let's take our little jam track here. Dun, 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 dun. Now it's going to be a little slow for me, but this is the idea. Now, what you're going to notice is it doesn't sound very musical yet, and it's not going to. The point is it's training you to understand how well can you see that position or those two positions together. How well are you able to have your picking hand follow your fretting hand around without stopping and without just moving into your route playing, which is up and down the scale, but moving in and out and back and forth and up and down and side to side and all these different things that you can do without stopping. If you wind up stopping a lot, it probably means that either A, your tempo is too fast and you need to slow it down a little bit, or B, you need more practice in one of those first things that we talked about. So meandering for me is one of the greatest things that you can practice, okay? Because it really starts showing you, prepping you for the next level, which is really learning how to make that music, create that solo, okay? So the second aspect of this is once you start learning how to meander, okay, then what you do is you start chopping that meandering into pieces, which is what we refer to as phrasing. And again, we're not really doing it consciously on this higher musical level, but as I start doing that, you're going to notice it begins to sound a little bit more like music. Now watch, I'm going to do the exact same thing. It's not overly musical yet, right? But as I do it, it starts sounding more like music because there's longer and shorter sentences, aka phrasing, right? So here we go. See what I'm saying? So as I start stopping in different places, it begins to sound a little bit more like music. Now, I don't want them all to be cut in the same shape. Right? I don't want them all to go da 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 da. I want them to be different sizes, and I want my meandering to constantly be shifting too. So you can see the beginnings of something that sounds a little bit more like a solo. Okay? Now, from there, what we're going to do is we're going to start creating repetition. And this leads us into the concept of escape routes, understanding scales and licks and how we learn how to move between these. So what happens with a lick, a pattern, or a sequence, which really for me, all those things kind of mean is it's something on the fretboard that's getting repeated, right? It engages somebody as we're playing. So let's say I was doing something like this, okay? I'll do a close-up shot here. Okay, so let's just look at what I'm doing here. And again, you could make anything you want. I'm just making something up here. So I'm doing a hammer-on from 7 to 8 to 10 on the second string. Then I'm going down to 7 on the first string. And then I'm doing a pull-off from 10, 8, and 7. And then I'm going to the 9 of the third string. And the way I'm picking this, although yours might be different, I'm picking this one with a down, and then I'm picking this 7 with a down, and I'm picking this 10 with an up. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way for you to do it, I'm just telling you what I'm doing. And then this one, this 9 here is a down, which pushes right back to the down of the 7, so they both kind of connect to each other. Okay, so my point is let's say I was developing a lick or a pattern that you probably know a number of different licks or sequences or something on your fretboard. But basically, again, the idea is when we're meandering, we're just kind of moving around. Well, when we do something that can be practiced in repetition, we can gain strength and speed in that product that we're practicing. So we're able to execute it at a much more faster level, a much more aggressive and energetic level. So when we're playing, we drop in. And again, I'm never trying to sell somebody that faster is better than slower. In my world, you need them both. You need all of it, okay? That's what dynamic is all about, is being... You have to have a variety of different things. If you're just playing slow all the time, it gets boring. If you're playing fast all the time, it gets boring. There's got to be something in the middle where you're thinking about other things than just how fast or slow you're playing. There's other musical elements to think about as well. But my point is that it is nice to have something that you can execute and bring energy to your solo that people engage in. Certainly a listener where they go, oh, wow, I get that. Because as soon as that's the point of a chorus of a song, it's something that repeats and people hear it and go, okay, I'm engaged now. So if we took this idea of this lick, what I want you to understand is, let's say you really like this lick and you were developing it, which I have lots of different guitar courses that talk about licks and different things like that. But it started occurring to me that a lot of times what happens with people is they develop a lick or they develop a pattern or whatever it is, but they don't really think about how it connects to the next thing, because you've got to escape from this. You got to get out of this. Once you've started playing it, you've got to find a way of being able to move away from it into something else. And there's a couple of different ways that you can focus on what I refer to as escape routes, which is what the guitar course is about. Is learning to think about moving up or down from the element that you're on right now, or moving right or left on what you're doing. So if you think about it, if I'm playing this, I have to first define what finger is going to be my escape route. So let's decide I want my escape route to be my pinky. What that means is as I'm playing this lick, I need to be aware that once I hit that pinky at some stage, I'm going to need to move. Now I could, once I hit that pinky, I could move that direction, or I could move that direction. But it's something worth thinking about, because if I move on my pinky, what that means is, let's say I'm shifting from here, right here. What I have to be aware of is if I'm on this pinky right now, that means that the next thing that has to happen is going to be lower than my pinky, because my pinky is the highest finger that I have. So I've got to have something that I can execute after that movement. I've got to have a lick or a motion or a meander or something that I've got to think about that comes afterward, because I've wound up in this position. If I had done this, and see how I moved from my first finger, I just slid up one fret to where my middle finger used to be. But what that did was it moved me into a new position on the guitar, which enables me then to do something completely different. But because I'm on my first finger, I know I can work on this side. So the whole concept of escape route is to understand that even though we're developing ideas on the guitar, through repetition, through practice, using licks or patterns or whatever it is that we're learning how to do. Let me kind of define this before I move on too. Oftentimes I will see people that stay in the active brain mode. And let me, for lack of a better term, because I don't know what to call it right now. But it's when music is playing and you're going... And it's a great place to be. But they're never able to go and throw something super cool in there because they don't have anything developed. It's like meandering musically, right? And we need that, okay? But every once in a while, it's nice to be able to go from that into something that is a bit more elaborate. Whatever it is. Let's say, I'm just going to see how this turns out. Let me start this jam track here. Again, I'm just going to kind of work across this. Now, I'm not saying that that's my best work, right? But you get an idea of how I can kind of go from something that's melodic to something that's a bit more of a flurry of notes, and then kind of go back and forth. And again, I would probably jam over this a little more, get a little more feel of what I want to do, but you get the idea. So to convince ourselves that we never want to play faster, we never want to do something that's repetitive, or we never want to play above the active thought level of, and I'm not making fun of that, we all do it. But it's nice to be able to then move back into it. So you play some sort of an idea, whatever it is that you like, It might be a pentatonic thing or a diatonic thing or a single note or single string thing. It could be a million things. But the point is, you kind of move in and out of those two worlds of this active thought kind of playing, and then you go into an automated thing where you've practiced this element, this lick, this pattern, whatever it is. And to be able to move between those two worlds and then also include the fact that you're playing in the confinements of some sort of scale gives you a better understanding of why understanding these escape routes becomes a really important thing, okay? Because it enables you to start forward thinking. Even when you're playing something that's faster, that's automated, you're working your way to a place on your fretboard, and you're also working your way into a finger position so you can execute the next thing. And it's funny because I never really thought about that before, but I've been playing all my life, and I teach people all the time about playing guitar, and it never really occurred to me just how crucial that element is, because you're setting yourself up for the next thing. It's kind of like having a problem with being able to see one position on the guitar, but then you can't see the second position. So you can't combine the two, and once you really learn to see the two of them, you're like, wow, this is super cool because I can move back and forth. Well, as soon as that happens, you start having to be aware of this escape route idea, because how you move into the second position or the first position, or back and forth, if you will, is setting up what's going to happen afterward. So it's really worth thinking about, okay? So please make sure that you check out, you can click on the link or the button or whatever's there, check out the course, see if it's something. If you solo at all, or you're in the process of learning how to solo, it's one of those elements I think that's just really forgotten about, and it's why we play something super cool, but then we get stuck. And then we have to move and then play, and then we play something super cool, and then we get stuck again. It's trying to learn how to break out of that. I think that's really important. Okay, so let's keep going here. Thank you so much. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Please let me know if you are enjoying this. And if you have any questions, we're going to try and get to those as soon as we can. It's not always easy. Usually I'm teaching, so I'm not answering the questions and things like that, but we will get to you as soon as possible, okay? So the next thing to talk about is direction, okay? Giving your solo purpose, okay? Which for me, oftentimes is melody. Okay, that's not always the case. If you're playing a cool metal solo, sometimes you're not just looking for melody. Sometimes you're looking for aggression through that repetition, all those things that we just talked about. But I want you to be aware, and this goes back to the first thing we talked about, the more you can start learning how to see a scale and a chord or a group of chords all in the same place, the more you can really start capitalizing on melody, whether you're thinking of it from the logical theory perspective, because you know all your notes and all that sort of thing, or you're just thinking of it from a visual perspective. And let me show you real quick what I mean by that. I don't want to take you all your whole day here talking to you, but let's say I was doing something with G. Okay, now this might be a little bit out of your wheelhouse, but just bear with me for a second. Let's say I was doing something with the G chord I've got sitting, we'll do this G. So what I've done is I've taken a C chord and moved it all the way up. So I'm playing 10, 9, 7, 8, 7. That's my G chord right there. Okay? And then the next chord comes up is B minor. Okay, well now I'm playing 7, 9, 9, 7, 7, 7. Okay? And then C pops up. Okay? Well, C is the next chord. Well, I've got C sitting right here, which is 8, 10, 10, 9, 8, 8, which is right next to the B minor, of course, but you add the middle finger on. Okay? And then D pops up. Well, I don't really have a D sitting there real great unless I go to this one. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm making a G chord moved up until it gets to D. And all these chords are based off what we call the caged chording system. Okay? So there's my D chord sitting right there. But then I need these sevens. So now what happens is I've got a G major scale sitting right here as well. Okay, and then I've got these chords sitting here. So when the G chord is being played, I start thinking about... And then B minor comes up. I can see that B minor, and I can see my scale at the same time. And C comes up. Sorry, wrong note. I need C. There we go. There we go. And then the D chord pops up. Now let's just try and put those together. And again, I don't want to play really fast. I want you just to see the real basic idea of how this works. So I'm using the G major and these chords. And you wind up getting all kinds of different sounds from doing this, from southern rock to pop to rock to all sorts of things in between. But you can see the vast difference here is that you've been utilizing what you can see and what you can play and your ability to meander through this scale. And you're now trying to give it some phrasing and some definition by trying to emphasize the right notes at the right time, even if you don't know your theory and you don't know what they are. I'm not saying don't learn it. I'm not saying it's not important. What I'm saying is everybody's different the way that they learn. But you can see how as you start moving down this whole process, your solo starts sounding a lot more like what a solo should sound like. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Please take a look at the Unlocking the Solo Connection course and see if it's something that you might be interested in. Maybe let somebody else know if they're in that place where they're just having a really hard time making their solos flow. Okay? You can click on the link or the button wherever it is, whichever one it is, and see if it's something that's for you. And I thank you so much for your time. And hopefully you learned a little bit something here, and you'll come back to Guitar Zoom and check us out and see if there's something we can help you with, okay? So take care, stay positive, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?